Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Women on Top podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Lynn, and with over 15 years of business experience, I became truly passionate about finding ways to support and hear from way more women. And what we know to be true is that women thrive when they are in their favorite position, on top. On top in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and on top in being real and authentic to who the hell they are. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy the Women on Top podcast. All right. Welcome back to the Women on Top, everybody. Today we are talking about something that I feel like so many women experience, but very few of us are actually taught to really understand. We're talking about our bodies, our hormones, and all of the different signals that they're sending us. And so I am so happy to be joined by Dr. Alicia Newsome, who is a functional medicine doctor. She's a best-selling author. She's a women's health expert who helps women just better understand what's going on with their hormones, their digestion, their metabolism, and fertility so that they can feel really good about their health. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Alicia. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah, me too. We've already been chatting, so I feel like we're just two girlfriends sitting down to have a conversation,
Yes.
and I love that. I kind of want to start and work our way back from the end a little bit. And I'm wondering now where you are today, if you were sitting with your 25-year-old self having coffee, what would you tell her about her body, her health, and maybe the way she's treating herself?
Yeah. I know for me, from a very young age, even starting teen years, I've always been in this grind,
Mm,
go, 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 you know? Um, and 25, I would have been in school. So lots of, finishing up my doctorate and everything like that. But I would tell my 25-year-old self, one, I'd tell her that you were more than enough
mm,
and that you are worthy. You don't have to prove yourself, and that everything in your life will align always. All things are always working out for your good. So relax a little bit. And then I would also teach her about her menstrual cycles and the phases that her cycles go through. Like a lot of times, and I didn't learn this until later too, even being a doctor, I did not understand my body in the sense of knowing that with my menstrual cycle, it goes through different phases where there's different hormones that are more beneficial for speaking engagements or giving presentations, or there may be the luteal phase of my cycle where I do want to go more inward. I don't need to shame myself for that. I need to organize my life around that, where I may be a little less social. I may need a little bit more rest. Um, so really I would help her understand her body and not to just drive it into the ground, go, 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 understand her menstrual cycles, honoring the different phases that she goes through. And then also the the 25 and the version of me in my 40s is very mission driven, and without our health, we really cannot, move forward in life the way that we want to. If we're always tired and we're exhausted and we're needing coffee to get through the day, I would really caution her to pause a bit and address a lot of those health issues earlier.
mm. I love so much of what you said. There was something that you mentioned about kind of this tapping into the hormones for specific
Yeah.
things, like giving a presentation or you know driving toward that mission in different ways. And so I'm curious if you can kind of unpack that a little
Yeah.
bit more. What do you mean?
Yes.
What do you mean by all of that? How can we tap into this superpower?
So there's 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, and a lot of times women will think the menstrual cycle is just the time that you bleed. That's actually just a portion of your entire cycle. So, your menstrual cycle begins on the day of red blood, okay? So not brown, not spotting, none of that, red blood. First day of your menstrual cycle, that's day 1. And you will have a healthy cycle will go anywhere between 3 to 7 days. in there, typically 3 to 5 days. And that's considered like menses. So the bleed time, right? That's a really good time to rest. It's a time to honor your body. It is a time to like eat warm, nourishing foods, making sure that you're getting good iron in, all of those different types of things during that phase of your cycle. And then you move into what's called the follicular phase. So the follicular phase is where your body is basically preparing for ovulation. So it's all that, all these eggs are coming out, and there will be one egg that basically will be the one that is used for ovulation. But that is also the time where estrogen is starting to go up. Okay. So estrogen, when it's in balance, not when we're estrogen dominant, because estrogen can make us crazy and create all types of issues like really heavy bleeding and painful tender breast and all types of stuff, make us feel a little nutty. But it's also a time that it does. Our skin glows more. We have more energy. We're more outgoing. The right and left side of our brains are more connected during that time. So that is a good time to start saying, okay, well, I'm more social. This is a good time to go out. This is a good time to give presentations. All of those different types of things can happen during the follicular phase. And then ovulation happens. And that's when those hormones are at their highest right before that. And that's also like just think about, even if we were out, and we talked a little bit about relationships earlier, but like if we were out and you're thinking like men hunting and all of this, like during ovulation, it is where we tend to feel a little more sexier. We tend to like draw in, our hunter, for lack of a better word. I should come up with a better metaphor. But like we tend to feel more in ourselves because we have these higher levels of estrogen and testosterone during that time. Testosterone is really good for motivation. It's also very good for like building muscle and all of those different types of things as well too. So ovulation happens, and then you move into what's called your luteal phase. And the luteal phase happens during the last half of the cycle. So you've had all these wonderful things happen with hormones. And then the luteal phase is the last portion. It happens from ovulation until the time you have that bleed again, that red blood. And during that time, progesterone is the hormone, the main hormone that comes into play. And progesterone is really a feel-good hormone. It's your body's own natural Valium. It's anti-anxiety. It is very calming and relaxing. But when women don't have enough of it, and I used to suffer terribly with this, my luteal phase, I would go into like a dark space. Like I would feel depressed. I would have no energy. I wouldn't like me, my kids, no one, like I would not feel like myself during my luteal phase. We typically call it PMS, and then for those that have it really, really bad, PMDD. So it can look very dark, and it can be very hard during that time. And for me, as soon as my period would come again, it's like lights would turn on and I'm like, oh, like, okay, I do want to live. I'm okay. Life is good. So, but one of the issues is that I didn't have enough progesterone during that time of the cycle to really support me during that time. So progesterone competes with cortisol, our stress hormone. So stress hormones, they come out, and they should come out just during acute times of stress. So, like, think about a bear coming after you. Cortisol comes out and says, okay, we got to get her to safety. She's going to run or she's going to fight. Okay. So, think you hear fight or flight. That's the sympathetic nervous system. It's there to keep you out of danger. And once that danger is away, your body should go back into rest and digest. It's also where really important hormones like progesterone are made, right? But if your body stays in this constant state of stress, especially during that luteal phase, your body's going to prioritize your safety, and it's going to choose cortisol. It's often called the pregnenolone steal. So basically, the body's saying, nope, we're not going to give her this pregnenolone, which is a precursor to progesterone. So we're not going to give her this hormone. We're going to keep her body safe. So I say all of that because it's definitely something that I dealt with. But the luteal phase is something to be mindful of your stress levels. Especially if you already carry high loads of stress, then you'll want to do more things that, like when it comes to exercise, go for a nice gentle walk, do yoga, do Pilates. It's not the time to do high intensity exercise. That would be better for like your follicular phase or during ovulation. Um, but during your luteal phase, you want to be more mindful of the activities that you're doing.
Okay. Oh my gosh, there's so much information. Like, where do I even start? I like what you said about the progesterone and cortisol because
Yeah.
that makes so much sense to me. I'm wondering, when you talk about like estrogen dominance versus progesterone, like not having enough, where do these imbalance? I mean, this is a loaded question, but like, where do
Yeah.
these imbalances kind of typically come from? And I guess the follow-up is, what do we do about them if we're like, "Oh, I have some of these symptoms?"
Yeah. So estrogen dominance can come from what we just talked about with progesterone just being low, like you don't have enough progesterone, and that tracks back to what's called the HPA axis. So hippocampus, pituitary, no, I'm sorry, not hippocampus, hypothalamus. It's a different part of the brain. Hypothalamus. I am not in my follicular phase right now, okay?
Hey, the rest of us don't know what you're talking
Yes.
about because we're not doctors, so it's fine.
So hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal gland. So hypothalamus is just a gland in the brain that tells the pituitary gland, another gland in the brain, what to do, and it then tells your adrenal glands what to do. So when you're under that stress, it's going to tell the adrenal glands to produce cortisol, and it's going to tell the ovaries like, yeah, we don't need you right now. Like, think about if a bear was running after you, the
Yeah.
last thing your body would think is now's a good time to make a baby, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's not. Your body's like, "Nuh-uh, we're not doing this
Yeah.
right now." And one of the issues is that oftentimes we stay in these places of chronic stress. So we stress isn't necessarily a bad thing, and it's actually good. It's called hormetic stress when we just have temporary stress that we put on our body. Our body learns to adapt and to adjust. But when we're under constant stress, then it creates all types of hormonal issues. So there's with progesterone that can create estrogen dominance. The other things that can create estrogen dominance are toxins in the environment, xenotoxins. What they do is we get them from our skincare products, we get them from our cleaning products, things that we breathe in the air, in our water, and they mimic estrogen inside the body. They attach to estrogen receptors. So they come in and they can create estrogen dominance that way. Another way that you can have estrogen dominance is there's something called beta glucuronidase in your gut. And what it does is estrogen goes up and then it comes down, right? It's in that follicular phase of the cycle, and then onto ovulation. It goes up, it comes down, but it's got to be able to leave the body. One way that it leaves the body is through your digestive tract, through your gut. But what can happen for some women is that estrogen gets reabsorbed in the gut, and instead of being pooped out, it goes back into the bloodstream. So that
Okay.
can create estrogen dominance. There can also be things that create estrogen dominant type symptoms. So women that deal with fibroids, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, things like that, the liver has to process estrogen as well. And there's different pathways that it goes down. So there's a 2-OH, a 4-OH, and a 16-OH pathway. Women that favor that 16-OH pathway, it creates proliferation of the estrogen, meaning that it replicates over and over and over. And that can
My
create a
goodness.
lot of estrogen dominant symptoms as well. And
Wow.
then the last area is testosterone. So testosterone can actually get converted into estrogen, and that can create estrogen dominance as well as fat cells. Fat cells can produce excess estrogen
Oh
too.
my gosh. There's so many ways that the estrogen can go off the rails.
Yes.
So, how do you know? Is this like just getting your blood work done? Like, how do you know if this is me and I have something happening that we need to look at more?
Yes. So you won't see it in standard blood work. that you go to a well visit. Typically, they're just running a CBC, a CMP. They'll rarely look at hormones. And if they look at hormones, they only look at hormones in the blood, which gives us very limited information about what's going on with our hormones. So, for example, this is such a good example of these phases here. So, for example, your hormones in the blood, you can't tell the difference between what's bound and unbound. So you can't tell what your body's freely able to use. You also can't tell how the body's metabolizing it, how it's going through the different phases of detoxification, all of that. So what we typically will look at is we look at the hormones in the urine and also in the saliva too. And it just gives us all this information that I was just talking about. And the other important thing is we can look at your hormones throughout the month. So let's say you go to the doctor and they do run your hormones. First of all, you've only got limited information with what's in the blood, but then it's just what your hormones did that day. It's
Yeah.
not showing you what your hormones did throughout the month. So what I do with my clients is something called cycle mapping, and we look at, what is estrogen actually doing throughout the month? Is it going up? Is it coming back down? Is it triggering ovulation? And then does progesterone go up and then does it come down? Like what are those levels throughout the month? So we're able to see all of that through urine testing. And they're
Wow.
dried urine samples. So you basically pee on this card and then you let it dry overnight. And then you do that each day throughout your cycle.
Oh my
So
gosh, I've
that's,
never heard of it.
yes, it's the testing. I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these tests and reviewed thousands of labs. So that's the way that I look at hormones. And then the other one with the gut, we're able to do that through stool testing. So we actually get a sample. I don't get it. The lab gets a sample of your stool, and it's very easy. They give you gloves and everything that you need. And to be able to get your sample and then you ship that back to the lab and then I get the results and I'm able to review it. Everything that we do, because my practice is completely virtual. So we work with women all over the country, all over the world. And we just have the lab shipped directly to their home. If we need blood work, we have a phlebotomist come to your house and then everything gets shipped back to the lab. And then we get your results and we're able to review it with you just right over Zoom.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I wish so many other women had access to this because, like you said, we're just not taught that. I had no clue until really only recently about the
Yeah.
cycles, the phases, and I'm close to 40. It's like
Yes.
all this information that I had no idea about, and I still am learning about. I still feel like I'm kind of in the dark about. So, I wonder for women who are kind of noticing this, they can go through your testing, and, do kind of go through this process, which is probably like ideal scenario. Are there
Yeah.
other things that can be done, in addition to, going through all the testing and like working with um, your practice that they can do to kind of help support themselves? And I guess what I'm really asking is like, you see all this information online about supplements and about the
Yeah.
right things to eat and about the right workouts and all of this. And I'm just kind of like, gosh, can you help us cut through the noise?
Yes, there's so much. I feel like at this point with social media, like I can't even get on there. I get so irritated. I'm like, "What is this?"
Ah,
It is a lot, and I could only imagine as someone who's just trying to, like, navigate the space, like, just being bombarded, like, every reel has its hook and, the thing to draw you in to dig into your pain points, and then you say, "This is your answer. This is the one thing," and this is why it's different than everything else. And I would say that it's a holistic approach. In functional medicine, we take a holistic approach. So imagine, let's say you get a headache, you can take a Tylenol, your headache goes away, but you didn't have that headache because you had a Tylenol deficiency, right? There's other things going on. So in functional medicine, we do look at a lot of things. It's never just one thing ever, but there are some foundational things that are really important, especially when it comes to supplementation. So what I recommend is a really good like multivitamin. Omegas are very important as well. and magnesium is very important. And I like magnesium threonate because it's the only one of the magnesiums that cross the blood-brain barrier. It's very good for like cognition, for focus. It helps get you into a deep REM sleep.
Mm.
Although you don't have to take it at night, you can take it during the day. When I take it at night, I wake up and I feel like my brain is like on. My husband loves taking it during the day and he just feels like he's zooming, he's super focused all throughout the day with the magnesium. It's one of my best selling products. So magnesium is key. It's also the first thing that goes when you're under stress. Your body uses magnesium for over 300 different processes within the body. So it gets depleted really fast. So either a magnesium threonate or magnesium glycinate is one that's very relaxing as well too. People will take that before they go to bed. Some people wake up a little groggy with it. So it's not usually my first go-to for people, but
Interesting.
magnesium is very important. And then I know probiotics are really important and they're very popular. So the thing that you want to do with probiotics is you want to rotate them. If you don't, you do something called monoculturing, where basically you create inside of your gut a whole lot of the same thing. So you want your gut bacteria to be very diverse and you want it to have a lot of good stuff in it, right? But if you don't rotate your probiotics and the different strains, then you just get a whole lot of one thing, which
Mm.
can throw off the diversity in your gut. So those are foundational things that I recommend.
Okay, those are really good. I like to have like tactical kind of what can we do now to just start to get, like you said, like the foundation in place to support
Yes.
ourselves really well. The other thing you mentioned was workouts and how it changes in intensity, it sounds like during our cycle,
Yeah.
depending on where we are. Do you have recommendations there of like how to set a good foundation? Is it, we hear of high intensity training. We hear you should be sprinting. We hear you should be walking, or you should be fasting and lifting weights. So I
Yes.
don't know.
All of it.
I don't have time in the day to
Yes.
spend 24 hours doing this
Yes. Yes.
stuff.
So one thing that you said with the fasting, that is one thing that once we test women and see what's going on with their cortisol levels, I make a recommendation based on that. For some reason, fasting, exercising in a fasted state is perfectly fine. For some, it is too stressful on the body. Fasting
Hmm.
itself is a stressor on the body. Again, a hormetic stress, it can be beneficial, but if your cortisol is tanked, then it's something that I don't recommend until, we get some adrenal support in there and you're doing a lot better there. And then when it comes to exercise in general throughout the cycle, yeah, it does change in intensity. So those first couple of days, I say listen to your body. That's the biggest thing too. Listen to your body. When I was in high school, I ran track and our motto was go hard or go home. And my coach, you could throw up on the side of the track, do whatever you need to do, but then
Yeah.
get back running.
Yeah.
So for me, and I think a lot of women, we've always been trained to like push through, especially when it comes to exercise and like go hard, all of these things, but we really need to tap in and listen to our bodies. So especially during the menstrual phase, like honor your body. If you feel like I need to rest, maybe just go to the sauna that day, all of those things, like really honor what's going on inside your body. As you move into the follicular phase, you will feel more energy, you'll feel more motivation, which is something to honor too, because what happens with men versus women is men wake up with a fresh boost of testosterone and cortisol every day, right? Women were very cyclical. So it's not expected that every day is going to feel the same. So that might be why some days you go to the gym and you're like, oh, yes, I'm you feel like you can take on the world. And the other days you're like, I don't have it. Listen to your body and honor what's going on there. So during that follicular phase, you may feel more motivation. You can lift heavier, all of that. And especially once you get closer to ovulation and testosterone goes up, you may feel like, okay, I can really lift now. And then when you
Yeah.
move into that luteal phase, do more gentler exercises. That first week of your luteal phase, you may still feel like the high of your hormones and everything like that, but especially as you're getting closer to your menstrual cycle, do things that are more gentle, the walking, the Pilates, yoga, things like that. I personally don't really do much in high intensity in general anymore. I have found that my body responds best to walking. It responds best to swimming, Pilates. Oh my goodness, it's like the best thing ever.
Ah,
Um, so I do a lot of that, and then I lift weights twice a week. So lifting weights is, because we don't want to lose muscle as we age. We need it. It's really the longevity organ that we need, so that as we age, we can get up and down the stairs, we can go to the bathroom by ourselves, all of those different types of things. So I lift twice a week.
okay. I I'm curious for, you're talking about cortisol and like progesterone and just the cycle of being in our luteal phase, which by the way, I wish it was longer that we had our follicular.
Right? It's like, I
I
gotta get stuff done.
I'm like, we only get what, like 5 days? I don't know. I feel like it's very short. And then all of a sudden I'm back in my luteal phase of like,
Yeah.
this thing is too long. I don't like
But
this.
I used to feel awful during my luteal phase, like that I had all the PMS and all of those. My mom even gave me like a book when I was a teenager, like, "Here, read this." Like she didn't know how to teach me about it or anything, and I didn't read the book, but she's just like, "Something's
Here's a
wrong
book.
with you, read this." But I feel fabulous during my luteal phase. It's actually my favorite part of my cycle.
Really?
I feel really, really good in my luteal phase now that it's healthy. Now that I have just this progesterone, I randomly I'm a nut in the case of like I'm a data person, so I run my hormones a lot. And I like test my blood work and I'm always testing different things on my body, but it's like when every time I run that test of my, like, hormones and stuff like that, I'm like, "I'm good." Like, or I'll even show it to other practitioners, like, because you always, want second opinions on stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, your hormones are, like, perfect." They're like textbook, but it's because it's what I do as well, right? So I do all the things, but I feel amazing in that luteal phase, and that's also what I want women to understand because I think now, especially in social media, it's almost super normalized, like, oh, I'm supposed to feel like crap. Like I must be in my luteal phase, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be like that.
I'm so glad to hear you say the opposite of that. Like, I feel really, really good. And that is something that I think I wish more women talked about. Like, gosh, there is a way that you can support yourself and actually feel like you're humming along in a really nice way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that I feel so great, but I feel good enough. Like, fortunately, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I feel like good enough. I really can tell when I have more energy when I'm in that follicular like
Yeah.
moment and I'm cleaning the house or just doing extra stuff and I'm like, oh, I have all these like ambitions to do different things.
Yes.
So maybe I could turn the dial up a little bit more on the luteal phase and get a little bit better. But what I was going to ask about is it seems as though the goal is to kind of keep cortisol balanced is what I kind of am coming back
Yeah.
to. Am I understanding this right? Of like the danger of maybe overdoing it in the luteal phase is that you will end up in a cortisol like what am I trying to say? Dominant
Yeah.
state.
Yeah. An imbalance with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because cortisol and insulin's a very important hormone as well too. And insulin comes out, so glucose goes up, and glucose goes up anytime you're having like bread, pasta, chips, anything that turns to sugar in the blood. And also stress causes glucose to go up. Because
Oh, I
think
didn't
about
know.
it, if that bear was coming after you, your body is going to say, we need glucose. Glucose is fast energy. Like, let's get some, energy to her legs, so she can
Yeah.
run, fight, like all of these things, right? So that also becomes an issue when women are trying to lose weight and they're struggling there. They're having this weight loss
Uh,
resistance. Stress becomes an important thing there because they're pumping glucose in the blood there. So what happens is glucose goes up, insulin's got to come out and it's got to lower it. Glucose goes up, insulin's got to come out and lower it. Glucose up, insulin's got to come out. Every time insulin comes out to lower it, insulin is a fat storing hormone. So we need insulin, but we don't want insulin having to come out all day long, especially if, you're trying to lose weight. Also, with another strategy that's really important for blood sugar regulation and energy is first thing in the morning having a savory breakfast. So, no dessert for breakfast, no pancakes and waffles and muffins and coffee full of sugar and, lattes, all of that. Because what that does is it spikes glucose first thing in the morning. Insulin's got to come out and lower it, but then you're on this roller coaster all day long of now, or glucose crashed because it was up so high. And then now you're going for a sugary snack or, having cravings and then back up, back down, back up, back down, which really affects like your mood, your energy, all of those things as well, too.
I had no idea the relationship of stress and insulin and like how they affect each other. So
Yes.
stress must be a really big component that I feel like is one of the hardest things for me because it's not like a physical thing I can tangibly see or do
Yeah.
something about. Like, yes, I can do something about it, but I don't like immediately notice the result. Whereas if I work out, I immediately notice the sweat and like I feel really good after
Yes.
the workout.
Yes.
So I wonder, what your thoughts are there and if that's something that you notice, especially in today's world. Are women, is this a struggle almost more than the rest of it?
Yeah, it's a big thing, and my goal with clients is to increase what I call the zone of stress resiliency. So, let's say you're whitewater rafting, you're going down in your tube and your raft, and you're just hitting the banks, the sides of the river, right? That's like stress, that's like life happening, right? And what we want to do is we want to increase that zone, so widen that river so that as life continues to happen, you're going down the river, you're not hitting the banks as hard. So I can't necessarily, as a functional medicine doctor, I can't change life circumstances, what's going on with finances or relationships and work and things like that. But we can help your body be able to adapt and handle stress. Also, there are other things that stress the body out in the same way that bear, that shows up or that relationship or those things that we obviously see as stress. Like we're like, okay, I'm upset with this person. This happened at work. Those are stressors, right?
Mhm.
But there's also other stressors that impact our body the same way. So toxins are stressful on the body physiologically stress the body. There's two different types of toxins. There's biotoxins. Those are living things like mold, fungus, parasites, bacteria, viruses. They live inside the body. They need your nutrients to live. They disrupt your gut microbiome, your brain, like all different types of things. And then there's the external toxins that we talked a little bit about mimicking estrogen. So those are going to be things in your environment, cleaning products, skincare products, um, medications, radiation, all of those things have toxic side effects within the body that create stress. And
Mm.
then there's what I call like deficiencies. So, like a bucket of deficiencies, and that would include nutrient deficiencies. So, not getting enough protein, good fats, fiber, you also need a certain level of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, antioxidants in the body. And then sleep. Sleep's very important. That is one thing that is free and one of the most underrated things that we need for our bodies. But then sometimes people have hormone imbalances that's causing issues and not able to sleep, right? Tired all day. And then, like at nighttime, feeling like, okay, I'm wide awake now, wired but tired feeling, scrolling through social media, right? So, but sleep is a very important area. And then the gut is very important as well too. So there are 10 times the amount of nerves going from the gut to the brain than there are leaving from the entire peripheral nervous system. So the gut is called the second brain because there's so much neuronal activity happening. Like whatever's going on inside of your gut is affecting like your brain, your thinking, your focus, your mood, all of that. So those are very important areas to look at when we're talking about stress, and those are more in our control too, of the stressors that we can remove or like the nutrients we can provide our body.
Wow. I also didn't realize I knew it was called the second brain, the gut. I've heard that, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize how integrally, I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. Integrally, I
How
don't, they're
integrated.
so connected. Yeah. That's really something to think about and
Yeah.
kind of pay attention to, because I think it's easy to bypass that, at least for me, and I would imagine for so many others.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
gosh, what a puzzle this is to figure out as you're
Yeah.
talking about. It's like, okay, where can I do more of, certain things? Where should I do less of certain things? And so I'm thinking about the woman who's listening who's like, okay, I I want to learn myself a little bit better. Where are kind of some of the first steps? You kind of gave, a good overlay of like some good supplements, some things to think about as far as working out and just getting to know cycle better. But I'm wondering, is it documenting? If you had a couple of quick things to say, maybe start here, 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 what would those be?
I would definitely start with savory breakfast. I know I
Okay.
like jumped into a different topic with that, but savory breakfast is really important. Think protein, good fats. Okay, so even my breakfast, like this morning, I had I can't even call it a protein shake, but it's kind of like a protein shake, but it has really good macros. But I do that when I have eggs just because there's not a whole eggs have protein, but not a whole lot of protein in them. And then I had beans with it. So that's not a typical thing that you would think for breakfast. Yesterday I had chicken and beans and rice for breakfast. So I'm having these, some good complex carbs that my body's not going to spike my glucose really fast. I've got my fiber in there and then I've got protein. I may throw an avocado in there some mornings, but it's really important to like stabilize blood sugar first thing in the morning. And then you mentioned documenting too. That to me, that is one of the biggest things is, there's so many different apps out there where you can document your food. And I know that can be so tedious and like who wants to do that? But do it for a week and just, scan the food. They're great now. Years ago, you'd have to like type in all your macros yourself. Now you can scan most things and it comes up automatically on the app or put in the restaurant that you're eating at. Somebody's already got all the macros, but pay attention to like how much you're eating.
Mm,
A lot of times we don't even realize, we'll go eat a salad and that salad's like 1,500 calories, right? And then you're like, I can't lose any weight, but we're thinking we're doing healthy things. So tracking that just in general to get an idea of like how much you're eating.
mm-hmm,
I find with a lot of the women that I work with that they're under eating. So they're not getting enough food in throughout the day. You really want to make sure that you're getting a good amount of protein in. And all the apps, they have all like the macro counters and things in there. And there's so many different theories on like which one's best. And I would pay attention to like what works for your body.
mm-hmm,
Sometimes I do good with like complex carbs, but higher protein for me and good fats. Some people do better with more carb intake for themselves, especially if they have thyroid issues and things like that. You need that glucose for the conversion from T4 to T3. I'm going to go down a whole rabbit hole there, but very important things. And then when you said tracking as well too, pay attention to like how do you feel after you eat certain things, if there's a food that you're eating, you know what, that makes me sleepy every time I eat that. That's good feedback on what's going on with your body.
yeah. I think that that's an area where so many of us could start to tap in a little bit more, and that's a goal of mine, quite honestly, after hearing you talk about it and just kind of thinking, okay, I could do so much better about just getting some information for myself. And to your
Yeah.
point, there's so many different things out there. I also want to make sure I'm supporting my fertility and just hormones in
Yes.
general. And so I'm going to kind of segue because I'm over the age of 35. So over the age of 35, is this considered high risk if a woman wants to conceive? And I guess I'm curious, like, what things should she be thinking about if she's interested in having kids at kind of this like later stage in life?
Really address the foundational things, right? That we talked about removing toxins, addressing your gut, getting good sleep, good water. handling stress, implementing different routines. We can talk about that too. I have very specific things that I do in the morning and the evening for stress is really important. I don't I'm not a big believer in the whole geriatric pregnancy thing, where I had my last baby at 39. I'm in my 40s now. My husband and I, we plan to have more kids. I'm not concerned,
Love that.
about all the things, right? But there is some things to be mindful about because our egg quality, we can't go get any more eggs. We're born with the amount of eggs that we have, but like egg quality is really important. And that is really impacted by toxins and things in our environment, um, inflammation in the body, all of those things. So that's really important to have antioxidant support, mitochondrial support for egg quality. Very, very important. And yeah, when I was in school, my mentors, I had 2 of them and they were having babies in their 40s, and I remember thinking that, and I had my first 2 at 27 and 28, and they were pregnant at the same time as me, but they were in their 40s, so I feel like for me, I've just always had a blueprint of, like, women having children, and I don't even wanna say older, but in their 40s. Pregnancy is not a medical disease that needs to be managed. Like a lot of times it's like this whole like you're pregnant and it's like it's being managed like a disease and our bodies were created to literally take a sperm and an egg and create a human being, right? We want to be wise, we want to make sure that we're doing all the things to have the healthiest pregnancy, but we are incredibly powerful human beings, right? And that can, create life and give birth. So I just don't, with all of my fertility clients, one of the biggest things that I do see is the stress. That is one of the biggest things of being able to, and of course my fertility clients are always 35 and above, or well into their 40s, but it is a common thing that I see with a lot of them is being able to relax and release, like not like every little thing or every single thing that you're being advertised to on I want to say that on the radio, not on the radio, on Instagram,
Uh-huh.
and Facebook, like all of the things like the worry, and it's so hard,
Yeah.
but being able to release that and just know like things are going to align. It's the typical thing where a woman goes through years of trying to get pregnant or having IVF and says, "You know what? I'm going to adopt." And then she adopts and then gets pregnant. It's because it's that same release, where it's just like, well, now I'm not stressed out about getting pregnant anymore
Yeah.
and I can actually allow my body
Yeah.
to get pregnant, right? Again, think about that bear. If that bear is coming after you, your body's not going to say, this is a safe environment. Like, this is the perfect,
Right.
conditions to get pregnant and have a baby. No, absolutely not. So that is really one of my biggest ones. And then also just understanding the timing of your own cycle. I think there's more information about it out now, but I still do find a lot of women don't understand like when they're ovulating and then, when to get pregnant and everything like that. So sometimes it's just a timing issue. You can't pay attention to these apps. The apps are just going off from a calculation, assuming you have a 14-day luteal phase. Some women have a 12-day, some women have a 10-day luteal phase. So that's how come some women will, once their period comes, the ovulation date changes. It's like, nope, you ovulated here. And you're like, wait, but I thought it was, this other day that the
Yeah.
app was predicting, but it's just a calculation. It's not really based on like what your body's going on. If you want, we can also talk about the different signs that your body shows, like leading up to
Mm,
ovulation too.
yeah. And then are there like tests that you can, is it the strips? Is it a temperature thing? Like, is it all of it? How do you know?
So So, first thing is that a lot of those are great tools, but I really advocate for women understanding their bodies. And one way that you can really look at is like what's going on with your cervical fluid. So, once you enter that follicular phase, estrogen starts to go up, and estrogen's what's also causing the change in your cervical fluid. So it will go from like a dry to like a creamy lotion type of fluid that comes out, and then into a, like, think about raw egg whites. So you take your egg, you crack it open, that clear, like stringy, that's what your cervical fluid will turn into when you're most fertile. So as you're getting close to ovulation, right? As soon as you ovulate though, your body's like goes into protection mode and it shuts down the cervical fluid, right? You may see an increase of that mid luteal because estrogen does have a little bit of a bump that goes up mid luteal when progesterone's at its highest. So you may notice a little bit of cervical fluid during that time. So that's key. Understanding what's going on with your cervical fluid can tell you, when you're ovulating and all of those things. Also, your cervical height. If you want to, you can go in and actually feel your cervix. So you feel where it's at. And when you're near ovulation, so it will stay low pretty much all of your cycle. But when you get close to ovulation and at ovulation, it goes higher. Okay. So think about it as, and it's not really completely true like the theories, like the fastest sperm, because really the ovary, I mean not the ovary, the egg chooses the sperm, right? So even if it may have not been the fastest, at the end of the day, that the egg says this is the one that I want, right?
I
um
didn't know that either.
yes, yes. So the cervix comes up, so the stronger, faster sperm can get there. And then also it's open. So you can actually feel inside. You may have to use like a middle finger, like a longer finger, depending on your anatomy, but you can feel the opening of your cervix. So that will also be closed through the majority of the month. But then when you get towards ovulation, you can actually feel it open as well, too.
My God, I had no
Yes.
idea.
So I
Wow.
think all the tools are great, but like really understanding and owning your body, what's going on is, I feel like, foundational first, because then the tools, if they mess up, they get wonky, all of those things, they're not freaking you out. My favorite tools are temperature. So basal body temperature. So your temperature will stay at a certain level throughout the month, but then after you ovulate, it goes up about 1 degree. And basal body temperature, it's measured first thing in the morning. So it's your waking temperature, like literally to get the most accurate, it's like before you even lift your head up off the pillow. You can do it with a thermometer. There's lots of ones. There's one that I like called Meter. And it connects to like an app on your phone. So you just like put it in your mouth and then it will get your calculation for you. I use my Aura ring nowadays. Apple Watch does it as well too. There's tons of them that measure your basal body temperature in the morning. So what you're looking for is after you ovulate, your temperature goes up, and it goes up because progesterone goes up. So after you ovulate, progesterone rises, and progesterone causes the body to also warm up. So you'll see that temperature go. And then also you'll know when your period comes because that next day or right before it drops. So
Um,
when progesterone drops, that's what causes the bleed in the uterine lining to shed. So you
okay.
can see that with the basal body temp. That confirms ovulation. Okay. The LH strips predict ovulation. Okay. So sometimes, especially women that have PCOS and things like that, where their body's like trying to ovulate, they could get a high LH, but then they didn't ovulate. The way you confirm it is through temperature. So the LH basically, it spikes. It's the strips, you pee on them and then they have the two and they get darker and darker. And then when it's really dark, and there's lots of ones that, you can like now scan it with the phone and it will tell you how high your LH is and all of that. But once you get your peak LH, you will ovulate typically within 24 hours. 24 to 48 hours is when you'll ovulate, and you want to make sure to have sex before ovulation and then um, confirm with the basal body temp.
Gotcha. Okay. That's helpful though, because it gives me more of a picture of like what tools do you use when, and how do you really confirm? And then, okay, so this is a silly question, but when you ovulate, I always thought that was like when the egg's like traveling down the tube.
Mm.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, this can't be right because then it's like exiting or it's doing so I don't know.
It's when it actually, like, comes out, it, like think of it like blossoming, so the egg comes out, that's ovulation, and then fertilization will happen, and then it moves down the fallopian tube. That takes 5 to 7 days. So, to come all the way down and then implant into the uterus, and then you'll typically get a positive pregnancy test in, 2 to 4
I
days.
see. I see. Oh my gosh. The female body is just so wild and amazing. And it's just a
I'm
whole
still learning, like,
ah,
all the time, I am learning. The other day, I was researching and looking, and the cervical fluid, like, it has all these tubes kinda in there for the sperm. It helps the sperm get up into the cervix, right? But then the sperm hang out inside of these like ridges on the inside of our cervix. And then all this like protein and carbs are fed to the sperm. Yeah. Yes. I was like, I never knew this,
what?
to like help the sperm before and then they're released in like batches, basically. Like the body will release them to then go up into the fallopian tubes and like wait on the ovulation. Yeah. They're like,
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is making sense now. That like because I'm like, well, wait, wouldn't you want like to I don't know, time it right like with the one day of ovulation? No, you actually don't necessarily. I mean, maybe, but it sounds like they also just hang out for a
they
minute.
do. So sperm can live inside of us for 3 to 5 days.
So
So
wild.
it's having sex leading up to the
Yeah.
ovulation that's the most important.
So wild. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I'm just learning so much. This is great. I mean, I know we could talk for hours, so I
Yes.
have to be careful with time, but I just feel so grateful that you're sharing this information and willing to come on to, a podcast like this to talk to women who are like me, just literally learning this for the first time today. Some of this
Yes.
information is brand new. Um and I guess, as we kind of are coming to a close, I'm curious, when you think of kind of this legacy that you want to leave, because I feel like you're so passionate about this. You've spent so much of your life dedicated to learning about this, not just for yourself, but gosh, for so many people. Um, not even as a doctor, but just as a woman, like what are you hoping that people remember, or what is that kind of legacy that you hope to leave behind?
That is such a good question. I feel like it's just a lot of times as women, especially successful women, we've really built a lot of who we are and our identity on like what we've accomplished in life, you know? And I know we've talked all about hormones and all of these things, but I really, really want women to know that they are so worthy, so loved, came to this earth to love and be loved. And what I really want is for women to find alignment, whether that's in their health, whether it's in their relationships and in their life, and really be able to walk in their purpose of why they're here.
Mm, that's so beautiful. I love what you said about worth. And that's a whole different podcast episode, I feel, because
Yeah.
that's something that I have journeyed through. And I feel like I hear so many women who continue to
Yeah.
discover that they are worthy and uncover those
Yeah.
layers. So thank you for touching on that because I do think it's all
Yes.
connected, despite the fact that we're talking about all of the, you know,
Yes.
the body and hormones. I do think it's all interrelated for sure.
It's so important. And that for me is really my life's work. I don't know if we talked about it or not, but I have a book coming out called Worthy of Rest.
Oh,
So it's for the woman who's tired of being the strong one.
oh my
Yeah, it comes
God.
out in October. Yeah, so it really is like my life passion, this whole like conversation around worthiness.
I love it. I
Yeah.
will definitely promote that to listeners. And I'll make sure that there's links and different things. And for sure, we will be checking that out when it
Okay.
comes out. That is a book that I would love to read. That
Yeah.
definitely speaks to me, just even that title. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. And that's so beautiful that you're able to give that kind of like birth that to the world.
Yeah.
Um, I have a closing tradition where I ask the guest who I'm chatting with to kind of leave a quote or reflection to the next guest, not knowing who it is. And so I would like to share what the last
Okay.
guest left and then
Okay.
give you the opportunity to do the same. And it doesn't have to be a perfectly curated quote. It's just whatever is coming to your mind or heart that you want to leave for the next guest. So I'll go ahead and share what was left. So my last guest said, there are so many of us who live on autopilot without getting time to spend with ourselves. And the more that you like yourself, the more that you then love yourself, and the more that you can support yourself in the way that you need. And then others can support you in the way that you need. And gosh, that ties into so many things that we
I
just talked
know.
about and how foundational health is and powerful that it really is and getting to know ourselves. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Love to hear if anything's coming to mind for you that you'd like to leave.
Yeah, I love that whole concept of that when we like ourselves, like the more we like ourselves, like the more time we spend with ourselves, we like ourselves and then we love ourselves. And then I just feel like, and then we prioritize ourselves, right? We stop putting ourselves last. We stop saying yes to things that we want to say no to. Like we really include ourselves in the work that we do. So many times we go to help others, but abandon ourselves in that process. And we don't want to do that. We want to count ourselves in.
Love that. We want to count ourselves in. That's so well
Yeah.
said.
No.
Gosh. That's so perfect. You have just been an exceptional speaker. I feel so much connection to you and what you're doing. And I can just tell that you are living out in so many ways what you were meant to do on this earth. And
Mm.
thank you for the joy that you bring to that conversation and the love that you bring to these conversations. It really is so impactful, far beyond what you even know. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for those kind words. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the show today. And before you go, I just have one quick favor to ask of you. There is a really simple way that you can help support me and help support this show, and that is to hit that follow button on whatever app you're listening to the show on. I'm trying really hard to level up the content and deliver unique value and amazing guests, and just hitting that follow button is the magic that will help continue to empower that. And remember that the world deserves to hear your voice and your stories, and you deserve a place at the top.